Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejohn Sarwick. Sejohn.
I like this new character that you've started. I want to know more about this guy.
Oh, I don't even know. I was just messing around with voices right now. It is currently just in the vocal stages. But I almost talked like an old-timey Westerner version of myself, because it's the third part of the trilogy, the before, during, and after trilogy. We're going to wrap everything up, but then re-listening to those episodes, we didn't really leave big cliffhangers.
No, we didn't. I don't...
Well, the biggest cliffhanger is the study that marked the before, during, and after, the whole eSports thing that I was taking part in. Mm-hmm. And I started to get questions from people like, when are you going to finally talk about this study and what you were doing? Like, you're being so cagey and clandestine on the show. And I'm like, well, once it's done, then I'll talk about it. Like, that's the point.
That's how this works.
So that's why it's a trilogy of sorts of the before, during, and after on this entire thing. Also, have you watched 4 episodes of She-Hulk? Can we give it the good old-fashioned 4-episode test?
I've watched 3.
You constantly disappoint me. We can give it a 3-episode test. Maybe that's more appropriate in a 9-episode show. I don't know. It's weird. The 4-episode test is all based on what journalists are provided. As I've done more investigating into why the 4-episode test. Generally, as pre-release to write their reviews, journalists are provided with the first 4 episodes of shows.
Yeah, and generally, we preserve the 4-episode test here for just to tell us whether or not we're enjoying the show. And I mean, like, in that regard, like, I'm already on board. So, I mean, that 4-episode test it gives you a feel for, what the show is trying to do. And, like, that's so much I think we've talked about, right? Like, that idea of tying together the universe, right?
Yes, and I understand that. I guess where learning that information and applying it to the 4-episode test as we do, initially it felt like sort of an organic thing, a thing that people had come up with on the internet, because generally you need more than 1 episode to judge a television show, especially when you consider, like, judging based on a pilot, usually the show will go from day to night, from the first to second episode. So right there is something that you should probably give it a little bit more of your time. But to find out that the way that journalism and reviews work is for them to be given those first 4 episodes, that also stimulates the corporate conspiracy theory portions of my mind. I didn't like how I said portions there. Where that means that they know they have those 4 episodes to try to win over a reviewer. And I don't know, if something is weaker, or if, we can hold back, a big reveal until the 4th episode and then try to hook them that way. I'm just hoping, and honestly, based on all of the publications that I read online, it's probably not the case. Journalists are aware of the fact that they could be putting their finger on the scale, these creators.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, wait, what are you worried that they're just catering to specific people for 4 episodes? Like, what is the conspiracy about, Devon?
Well, the conspiracy about is that those 4 episodes, if they're trying to make them stronger, spending more money, making sure that all of those are written by the show creator before things can go downhill or be sourced out to a writer's room or different directors. Basically, all I'm exploring is, Pamela Fryman does the pilot, and then if we can keep her on for the next 3 episodes, there's going to feel like it's a uniform sort of universe. Every episode is going to feel similar because it's all being directed by the same person. And then if I read a review, right, and I'm like, oh, and I watch those first 4 episodes, but then I get to episode 5 and it's written by somebody different or directed by somebody different, more than likely both of those things are happening, it might not feel like the show that I read the review for.
Sure, yeah. I mean, what's more likely to happen is a between seasons shift, right?
Yeah.
And that's the real killer, is going into a season 2 of a show used to be a huge gamble. because who was still around? The biggest example of that is something like Walking Dead, right? Where Frank Darabont leaves the show after the first season, and I stand by that first season being just a phenomenal piece of cinematic achievement for television, right? And then after that, it becomes the show that we now all meme about for the last 5 years, right? But that first season is like a completely different show.
Honestly, I've never seen The Walking Dead. I never read it. I've never seen an episode. So I'm gonna have
Well,
to
if you
take
do,
your
check
word
out the
for
first
it.
season.
The
I guess
first
is what I'll
season's
say.
worth it.
Yeah. At least give it a season's watch. And the big thing about those early seasons for AMC shows is the first seasons of a lot of those series were 6 episodes, sometimes 13. Like AMC, when they first started kind of really getting into the TV game with like Mad Men and stuff, really kind of putting their foot in the door. Like they were being very delicate, shall we say, and that's long gone out the window with what they do now. But yeah, like they were always kind of trying to establish a certain caliber of television, and I think part of that was, we'll guarantee you a season's worth of real work with the artist, and then after that it's up in the air.
I guess it sort of felt British to me, the fact that a lot of those seasons were 6 episodes, because historically, the reason why, like a comedy series, like say a Mighty Boosh or an IT Crowd, would have that 6-episode first season was so they weren't overextending their budget, because they'd be given like X amount of dollars to make a series of television. And if they're like, all right, so we can get 6 episodes, each episode gets like $30 million behind it. And I know that that's not what the budgets are, right? First of all, it would be pounds sterling. But but more importantly, all I'm trying to point and demonstrate is the fact that that is why the first season of a lot of these British shows are like 6 episodes. And then with Mighty Boosh is going to be the one that I use because it's the one that I kind of care about the most in more recent times. The second and the first season is longer because of the money that they had, but they ended up going like threadbare for some episodes, like an 8-episode first season. So then when they got to the second and third, having now worked in television and seeing how they bring it together, they decide, well, if we do 6 episodes in the second and third series, we'll have more money per episode. So we can just do more each episode as opposed to trying to squeeze out 8 episodes.
You also have a lot more going on with actors and scheduling and stuff like that when it comes to British television in general, European television in general. You have it's just a whole different mentality to how people work, right? So there's also that aspect of it as well. Like the people involved just simply aren't expecting to be around for this isn't their life, right? Unlike say like a show here where for instance, somebody does like a Walker and their whole life gets upended because they suddenly start scheduling again, and it becomes like a huge deal for them, and they end up having to walk away because it's a pain in the ass.
I mean, the biggest difference between American and British television is the fact that, we're going for 22 episodes. Why are we going for 22 episodes? Because each episode we could sell ad revenue on, and ad revenue is how we make our money, Dad.
Yeah.
So, but it is so when AMC was like, we're going to enter it, looking at the British TV model and being like, if we do 6 episodes, we can spend a lot more money per episode. And when you're on like American movie classics, you want to look more cinematic. You want to live up
it
to
was
that
also
title.
it was also to keep up with the likes of like HBO and Showtime and as well, right? Who were doing 13-episode season shows and stuff. There's but that to the original point about the idea of like why give it 4. I mean, I would say to you then maybe you need to give it a 5-episode test just to make sure they're not swindling you.
Well, no, I guess it's just something where it boils down to is just that consumer responsibility to understand that the people in charge know that 4 episodes are what's going to be distributed. So if they're like iffy on a show, especially like we're talking about She-Hulk. She-Hulk is the brand here, and by all accounts that should be 9 episodes now, right? Despite the announcements of it being 10 originally, Kevin Feige has come out and said that it's going to be 9 episodes. I misspoke, and like monetarily we can only afford to do 9, which is the weirdest fucking thing in the world to come from a Disney owned company.
Mm.
Like, you have all the money in the world, guys. I
don't know. I've heard 10 episodes. I have heard 9 episodes. There was some stuff originally reporting 13 when it first got announced. So I honestly, as a consumer, have no clue what's going on.
So it is 9 episodes. D23, the expo, they did a mid-season trailer and said that there are 5 episodes left. So I mean that could change because everything has changed, but that mid-series trailer did say there's only 5 episodes left.
I shouldn't have to depend on the D23 conference to clarify shit for me, especially because nowadays that is not something.
Well,
I mean, it never was.
I guess
anything that you
it's
like
weird
watch, right?
because you always sort of bring up. I don't know. I kept hearing 10, but the guy who said 10 has come out and said that now it's going to be 9, and then you still feel like you can't trust that. So I like what evidence can I present to you?
What I'm saying is, I'm not talking about you and me, Dev.
Oh, okay, I got
look
you.
into this shit and study this shit all the time and are on Twitter all the time.
You're playing.
I'm talking about how
devil's advocate here.
Well, right. And if I say, oh yeah, I can't wait, it's going to be a great 9-episode series, and then somebody next to me goes, oh, I thought it was going to be 13. That's disappointing. That's a shitty problem to have.
It's a shitty problem that everybody doesn't know. Yeah, that is, and I do that. I see that a lot in like Twitch chats, which is a weird thing to bring up, but when She-Hulk started, he's like, yeah, we don't know how many episodes it's going to be. I'm hoping it's going to be more than 6. And then someone said that 13, and I said they've gone on record that it's going to be 9 episodes.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, is like, that's not something that you shouldn't have to research to find out how much of that show you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess this is a problem of 2022, not a problem of 50 years ago, I guess, because, like, I don't know if people were this into, like, tracking television or knowing what was going on, right? But now that we live in this era where, like, we used to binge everything, but apparently Netflix is even saying that they don't want to do that anymore. Like, it's just this idea of trying to figure out and get a feel for what's going on in the show. Part of that is knowing how much is coming and what beat this is, what act you're in, that kind of stuff. Like, audiences are becoming more aware, but then what's happening is that the business side of it, whether they are doing it intentionally or not, are muddying the waters with all of that. And it creates just really weird conversations for people. Because I remember getting to the end of Winter Soldier and Falcon and Winter Soldier, and people being like, can't wait to see what happens next season. And I was like, I don't think there's going to be another season of this show, guys. Like, I think there'll be movies. I'm excited to see where they go with these characters. I'm not saying it's the end of those characters. I don't think we'll ever see a second season of that show. I'd love to be wrong. But, like, maybe there's been some announcement that I don't know about because I haven't been reading the right Twitter feed. That's stupid.
I mean, by all accounts, now we know, right? A year ago we didn't know, but now we know. Captain America 4 is happening. That is where Falcon's story is going to continue, as he has now taken on the mantle of Captain America. And some pretty exciting casting information has been announced for that movie.
Yeah,
I never thought I'd see Shara in live action, and that is very exciting to me.
I never thought we'd see Tim Blake Nelson again. I am so excited.
So you've done 3 episodes of She-Hulk. Spoilers for the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk. The Wrecking Crew showing up at the end of the 3rd episode. First of all the tinglies and excitement inside of my body as they show up, and I'm looking at their website, I'm like, holy fuck, it's the Wrecking Crew. And then the beautiful thing is like, what are you guys mugging as Guardian construction worker? And like, I mean, essentially, yeah, that is what they did, right? Loki accidentally enchanted their items in the original comics. It's just beautiful. I've always been a fan of the Wrecking Crew, and for the dumbest reason, because in the Sleepwalker comics, which bread and butter, I love the Sleepwalker comics, they did a sort of slant parody version of the Wrecking Crew called the Chain Gang. And they were 4 guys. I feel like I've talked about it on the show or not, but I love talking about the Chain Gang. They're introduced in issue 7 of the Sleepwalker comics. And because of the events of the Infinity Gauntlet saga, so everything that we saw Thanos doing in Infinity War, they are imbued with powers. And it's like strong link, uplink, and all this other stuff, and it's this incredible thing. But then they find out that the only way that they can use those powers is if they're chained together, because it's really the chains that were imbued with the power.
Oh man!
Because they were working on a chain gang in a prison, so they use it to escape, and then they're like, "All right, deuces," and then they're like, "Oh, I don't have my powers anymore."
Oops. Oh
And
man,
there, and
that's
so,
yeah.
so then when I
Well, so
find out
yeah,
that,
that was a great pull, and that's one of the benefits of of doing the She-Hulk show, right? Is
yeah,
that they can do those kinds of polls and get away with it, right? Like they can have weird stuff happen. I mean, you know, just just waiting for Howard the Duck to show up.
honestly, here's the thing. I'm glad you brought it up before I brought it up, because in the shower on Friday, I was thinking, man, if Howard the Duck shows up and that's how they excuse away the fact that this is going to be 9 episodes instead of 10, would be fantastic. Like just like, oh, now I know why it's only 9 episodes, right? The extra CGI to bring you in. And then
Oh
maybe
man.
and then stab at Seth Green doing the voice, and then he's like, "So what do you think they want your blood for? They're gonna orphan black you?" Like it would be
There we go.
very,
Start making references to to Orphan Black. That'd be phenomenal.
it'd be just good. And it's the fact that like Howard the Duck is another one of those characters who can break the fourth wall, or has at least in the comics. So you bring these two together, it'd just be a wonderful scene. It would make me very happy if that's what the route they decided to go.
But I mean, like,
To
but
explain it.
that caliber, right, of
Yeah.
ridiculousness is completely on the table now, and I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, so the wrecking crew shows up and they're trying to get her blood. My initial thought in that moment was, oh, it's for the leader. Leader has to be the person who is funding them.
That's an interesting thought to bring him in.
Especially, and then having the confirmation that he's apparently going to be in Captain America. Is it New World Order? Is that the...
I think that's the name. Yeah, that's the current name.
Okay. I hope Hollywood Hulk Hogan is in it. I'm an asshole. But our wrestling fans really liked that reference. And if you really did...
The one NWO fan, yeah.
Well, they're wrestling fans. They know NWO. Everybody had WCW versus NWO on the N64. I didn't even like wrestling, and I owned that game because Diamond Dallas Page was in it. But yeah, so if you did like the wrestling thing, you know who I'm talking to you specifically right now, and this is for you. This is narrow casting just for you. Let me know as soon as you hear this. Use the magic catchphrase gridlock. All right. Yeah. So. Excuse me.
Don't die on me.
I'm just so happy. Now that we do know that he's going, like he's confirmed for New World Order, what better place to introduce him than in the She-Hulk series? The only other place that I would really want it to happen, but it'd be so weird based on everything that we've seen for the character, is if it were Thunderbolt Ross trying to get Hulk blood, right? And then that's how they're going to introduce Red Hulk, which would also make sense considering a Thunderbolts movie is confirmed for 2024.
Right.
There's a lot of things that I'm excited about.
Well,
in terms
Thunderbolt
of
is definitely the reason they bring
She-Hulk.
Emil Blonsky back, right?
I would hope so, or maybe
Right.
just for the fan love of the fact that, you know, Abomination and he's out in the world, and you haven't seen the 4th episode, but to bring Wong into She-Hulk, that's going to have a payoff.
Yeah, no, I mean the way that it's just kind of tying a bunch of the after Endgame stuff together, right? I think that, you know, we've talked about on the show that there seems to be a little bit of a gap in kind of like what the hell's going on. You know, I don't want to say that it's directionless because like I really don't think it is. But everything after Endgame feels like it's doing its own thing, right? Seems like the first time where we're starting to see stuff get pulled together, and that's great. That's awesome.
I called it world building in the before episode, and now and after, what I'm going to say is I think She-Hulk is going to act as that connective tissue to all of the semi-standalone feeling Marvel films that we have seen.
Yeah,
that's my hope. Anyway, I would love it. I'd also love, now that I'm thinking about it, and he always stares at me since I got his figure, if Thunderstrike could get introduced in terms of the whole Asgardian construction worker being the origin of the wrecking crew getting their weapons, that'd be really cool too. And a nice way to tie it into Thove and Lunder. So, which is available now on Disney Plus. And I don't want to say we have a time capsule episode on Thor: Love and Thunder that might drop any day, but I would catch up if you're a subscriber.
Oh man! So you want to do everybody a favor and actually talk about this test you were in?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
You started by talking about how everybody's been asking you about it, and we still have not talked about it.
Well, the other thing that we needed to resolve was our discussion on She-Hulk. So I felt like that's the thing. I'm excited for you to see the 4th episode. I mean, I was in from the 1st episode. I guess one more thing to talk about She-Hulk, and then we'll go. How you feel about the twerk that was heard around the world?
It was a moment in the show. It's so weird because like I'm not offended by it, and
why would snorted. You be? Yeah,
I chortled. I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like the universe has put us now in a position where we somehow have to like defend it as people that were not offended by it, and that's a weird position to be in because you should not have to. It's like you shouldn't have to prove a thing that is not true. Like it's not offensive. It's a joke in a joke show, and it's totally something She-Hulk
in a She-Hulk show. Issue 46. The first 7 pages are She-Hulk jump roping naked. And because she's moving it so fast, the blur lines obscure her. And then the final reveal of that whole thing is that she was wearing white underwear underneath it the whole time. So even if you had tried, and I'm sure people did, right? Like, and it's all about that. From the cover of the issue, it is her like naked, covered with a towel, being handed a jump rope, saying, "We got 22 pages to fill. Let's give them some cheesecake."
Yeah, it's like, and like if this was a discussion about whether or not that is something that like you want to embrace in a show about female empowerment, that's an interesting discussion to have. But that's just not what's happening, right? Everybody's just everybody. We should also make it clear it's a vocal minority of people that are just being really like shitty about that happening in a show that, according to them, they don't even like anyway. So then why are you still talking about it?
I have to hate watch it so that I can comment on Reddit with all of my buddies.
Yeah,
wait, I'm sorry. Let me take that from the top. I have to hate watch it so I can post things on 4chan. I don't know why the voice is this. Hello, Internet. Involuntarily.
It's the gross Internet guy.
Yeah, it's gross Internet
Everybody
guy.
knows gross Internet guy.
Everybody loves gross Internet guy.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. How can you feel when everybody loves Raymond? I prefer Robert.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as the She-Hulk stuff goes, I don't know. It fit right in with everything else that was going on in the silliness of that show. I just like it feels like, and again, then it feels trite to just say, oh, it was just silly. Like, no, I mean, like, it's a funny show and it's tying it into things in the real world in a way that I really appreciate. And like, all this is just them doing that. I don't know. I'm not caught off guard by it.
What upset me more was that it was all over social media within like an hour of the episode dropping. Yeah. I didn't expect She-Hulk to be the kind of thing where I'd need to be dodging spoilers, and that was just a very strange feeling. And then also like Disney the next day dropping things that were spoilers to the 4th episode on social media. So we haven't necessarily escaped the whole, if you don't watch it right away, Disney's going to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the hope with the Thursday move, that like maybe they're saying we'll give you the weekend, and they're not. And I only bring that up. I bring this up. Huge spoilers for Cobra Kai Season 5 are about to happen. And when I say huge spoilers for Cobra Kai Season 5, I'm not talking like plot significant. I'm talking they do that Cobra Kai thing where they bring back former actors.
Right.
And the fact is that in the 5th episode, the love interest, he said with air quotes around it, from Karate Kid Part 3 comes back in the episode, and it's revealed that she has a relationship to somebody else that we've been watching since season 1. And to prepare for Cobra Kai, marathoned the first 3 Karate Kid films because I love them. They are movies that I absolutely enjoy, and rewatching them again as an adult, it's just like, man, this is such a great trilogy. It is such a better trilogy than it has any right or need to be. I don't want to be. It's really good. Karate Kid Part 2, like, instead of it continuing to focus on Daniel and it being like all backstory for Mr. Miyagi, is incredible.
That's honestly the one that I have the most ties to. I know Karate Kid and I know what's the third one?
Karate Kid Part 3.
Is there like a subtitle on that one?
No subtitles. You don't
Not
really
until
get
we
that
get
till
to
the next Karate Kid.
The next Karate Kid, which is the one with Hilary Swank, right?
In Boston, of all places.
Yeah. So 3 is probably completely gone from my brain then, because like.
Well, let me tell you, rewatching 3, I really enjoy 3 because it explores something that these type of movies never explore, which is what comes next. Like, going from the whole fight in the first movie to then going to Japan because Mr. Miyagi's father is dying, and the fight that waits for Mr. Miyagi there, like, is really interesting. Like, it is sort of this duality of the fact that Daniel-san could run from Cobra Kai or he could face up to it. And then because he's done that, and Mr. Miyagi has seen, a 17-year-old person do that, he like kind of realizes, all right, if I go home, I have to finally deal with what I've been running from literally since the 40s. Like he left in 1929, I think, is when Mr. Miyagi came to America. It's just this insane sort of duality of like, this kid dealt with his problems when he was the same age as me. I should probably go deal with mine. Right. And then the third one, like, here's what you don't remember about the third movie. And let me tell you, it's 75% of the movie. What you don't remember is Mr. Miyagi and Daniel-san trying to open a bonsai shop where they sell bonsai trees. Like,
oh man,
Daniel, instead of using his college money to go to college, buys a storefront for them to sell bonsai trees. And then the other part is Terry Silver coming in and trying to get revenge on behalf of John Kreese. And that guy, he's such a great character. And if you're watching Cobra Kai, they've done so much more with who was this over-the-top kind of cartoon villain in 1989.
Yeah.
Just wonderful stuff. But like, nobody remembers the third Karate Kid because the karate part of the third Karate Kid is the third act and really nothing more. There's a lot of like cliff diving and bonsai tree and like setting up a business. It's not a relationship between Daniel and Jessica Andrews because like they meet and she's mad at her boyfriend, and then when he goes to pick her up for the date that they set, she's all, I'm sorry, we're actually going to give it another try. So then they're just friends the whole movie. So you don't have that like glory of love moment from Karate Kid Part 2 where Daniel-san literally like puts his life on the line to defend Kumiko, and you don't have all the stuff with Allie from the first movie. So you don't have a romantic subplot, which we've discussed. Hollywood loves a romantic subplot because that's what they hang a lot of the memorable stuff on. Mm-hmm. You don't have that. Nobody cares about Sim Bonsai Store, the movie. What matters is... What matters
I would love to watch that movie now, like made now, right?
Yeah.
Like that. It feels like it's very much a movie that could be made now because of the ways in which we kind of explore all the weird shit in film. But back then, what were like? Yeah, it was the 90s. What are you doing?
It's one of those situations where everybody involved with Karate Kid Part 3, like after the fact, was like, the script wasn't there, but like we just felt like we were being pressured to make the movie. It needed more. The script doesn't make sense. A lot of the stuff doesn't make any sense. I mean, the big thing about Karate Kid Part 3 that is just fucking bullshit is that the All Valley Karate Tournament has changed the rules so that the defending champion just gets to compete to defend their title at the end. So all these other kids have to compete in the tournament, and then whoever wins that portion of the tournament fights the defending champion. So is that like, it's like the writers were like, we need less karate in the Karate Kid Part 3. How can we put less karate in this movie?
Well, what's the year on Karate Kid Part 3?
1989.
So it's interesting because I think what you're seeing is that's when we start to see kind of the bubbling up of like the anti-violence movement in film and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which eventually ends up being the Ninja Turtles a few years later, and like you even get some of that happens to Batman when they start to make later Batman movies and things like that. People are like, oh, but this is like kids are going to be into this. We need to be careful, and so I wonder if that's part of what you're seeing. Is that they dial back on the kids fighting.
I mean, so here the really crazy thing about it is Ralph Macchio was 27 in the Karate Kid Part 3. Mm-hmm. So like, and then the person who trains him, Thomas Ian Griffith, who plays Terry Silver, he's 4 months younger than Ralph Macchio, but he's supposed to be playing a Vietnam vet who's supposed to be like an adult who's training him in karate in the third movie. So like that's just an insane thing. That is these two 27-year-olds and one of them is acting like he's 17. It's just
the 90s were the early 90s.
The early
were
90s,
weird,
yeah.
Man.
But it's but like the stuff that happens in it, it's kind of the most gruesome Karate Kid movie. Because the whole thing is Terry Silver's like, let me get revenge on him for you, John. You go to Tahiti and rest. And the whole thing comes up. And John Kreese, when he looks at Terry Silver, he's like, there's just one thing I need you to do. I need you to make his knuckles bleed. You know, as reference to when Mr. Miyagi makes him punch through the two windows in the beginning of Karate Kid Part 2. So Terry Silver develops this crude wooden statue man. Like the limbs are 2x4s and the face and the torso are like thick pieces of wood. And then he has Daniel train on that because he's like, you need to be able to like understand what you're attacking and understand that like it's not a pad. You're kicking a human. Like it's going to have more resistance than this. And so he's like, yeah, just keep punching the face. And he punches the face until his knuckles are raw and bloody. And looking at the movies, like there's the most blood in any Karate Kid film is in Karate Kid Part 3. So it's like, it's one of those weird things where like, you're probably not wrong about the anti-violence of it all. Though, like 89 seems to be the year that kicked off that campaign. And then the movies that were being made in 89, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Dick Tracy, and
we talked about this with Gremlins 2 the other day too, right?
Yes, exactly. Gremlins 2. Though come to find out, Joe Dante went on record after we talked on Gremlins 2, completely unrelated, just the Bader Meinhof of it all, that have you ever seen the Key and Peele sketch where they're talking about the writer's room for Gremlins 2?
Yes.
Yeah. Joe Dante went on record saying that's exactly how it happened. Like, we didn't know how to write a Gremlins 2, and there was all this pressure to write a Gremlins 2, so we literally just went around the table and were like, what do you want to see in the movie? Like, they
Here's a big old
it.
pile of cocaine. Let's all sit here until it's done and come up with a script for Gremlins 2.
Yeah. So, like, that was just...
round robin.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where writing a sequel to, like, an iconic movie, it's not easy. Right? Right. We live in 2022 where every movie is kind of expected to be getting a sequel if it makes back its budget. If it makes 1.5% of its budget, then it not 150% of its budget. That's what I'm trying to say. Then it's going to get a sequel because oh my god, there's money to be made here. Like it's honestly our mining right now is cinematic franchises. And
yeah. Well, and you know, the presence of a sequel always boosts like sales on the original when it comes to like DVD and streaming sales and stuff like that. Like there's a whole sequels always feel like a business decision and never an artistic one. Like I'm not gonna like say that it's impossible that every sequel out there was done just because some business exec asked for it, but the majority of them definitely that's where they're born, right?
Not to tease next episode too bad, but Clerks 3 is coming out this coming week in terms of sequels being made for money or for artistic merit. So that'll be an interesting discussion if we're able to catch that movie.
Yeah, although we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah,
but next like week. Before sunrise, before sunset, all of like there's definitely examples out there, right? Like of films that are sequel films that are passionately made by creators coming back to a thing that they love, that they felt they had more to say. That is not the case, especially with Karate Kid 3. That is not always the case, though. In
right,
Hollywood.
but weirdly, now that they've gotten to sort of not revise but build on what is there in Karate Kid Part 3 in Cobra Kai, like even Ralph Macchio was like, we set up a really interesting framework in that movie, and it's cool that this show allows us to build it out. Like it was
actually do something with it.
Yeah, like it was a heady picture that was way ahead of 1989, but because of that, 36 years later, we get to put it together, and it's like, wow, that's really interesting, because I've always liked the character of Terry Silver, and when they name checked him in the first season, I was thrilled at the thought that Thomas Ian Griffin might eventually come back to the show, not even knowing that he was a big part of the fourth season of the series, just knowing that what he represents in Karate Kid Part 3, he's the most memorable part of that movie, because he is straight up just doing Michael Keaton and in like just over the top insanity with his delight in like trying to destroy a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, it's a really weird character and a really weird concept for a character. I'm glad though. I'm glad that you're really digging Cobra Kai.
But that whole thing though, what the reason that this whole discussion on Cobra Kai started is they do bring back that character from the third movie, and I had watched the third movie on Friday, as I said, to get prepared for it, and the actress is Robin Lively, who plays that role, and I'm like, oh, I know she was Teen Witch in the film Teen Witch, but like, what has she been doing lately? And her top listed thing was not Cobra Kai, even though it released that day, right? Like, it was nowhere near her filmography. So like, the next day after I finally saw her on screen, it had magically appeared. No, like, I don't think IMDb knows that like finally we can reveal this information, but the fact that like Netflix kept it close enough to the vest before just putting it out there to ruin that surprise. I mean, a surprise that like all the show was basically using to market it on all of social media. They did a good job there. It was pretty exciting. I wasn't expecting that, but also, as somebody on the other side of Cobra Kai Season 5, we sat and we binged it. Like, the Netflix binge is not easy. So I read that they're going to possibly switch to episodic releases, which, like, good for Hulu, good for Disney+, good for HBO, like, making that sort of the norm in a lot of ways. Amazon Prime, too, because they did that with Miss Maisel. That's one of the first ones that I can think about there. Good for them for like swaying the giant to come to their way, because like, it's 5 episodes of Cobra Kai, right? So what's that going to be? 2.5 hours? We can do that. And then we get to the final episode and it's an hour long, and they're just like steadily getting longer as we're going through. Like, it's so hard to plan for a Netflix binge as opposed to what like a marathon was when I was younger.
Sure. And I mean, like, part of the reason why I like doing the whole binging after a show has had a few episodes type of thing going on is that comes from a time when shows were 44 minutes, right? Like that comes from a specific set amount of time. I know what I'm doing as far as getting dedicated to a thing. But that is so out the window nowadays with exactly like you're saying. The idea that on a streaming service, they're not being held to a certain time length. God knows that they're not structurally built the same way. I mean, look at any of the Netflix Marvel shows, and there's some seasons of those shows where they're two different seasons just slammed together. So like binging the first half of Luke Cage is awesome, but then there's this whole second half where I was also awesome, but I needed to just dedicate a different time to do that. So like binging has definitely broken the way that we like expect to watch a thing, and I think that we're still going to see instances where that becomes kind of like the cool thing that this show does, as opposed to every show doing it. I don't think Netflix is going to walk away entirely, just like I don't think that HBO or Hulu or Disney are going to shy away from doing it if it feels like the right thing to do, because Disney does do the whole like dropping like 8 episodes of their animated stuff still all at once and all that, and like that works really well because they're short form and they're fun and they're great little interstitials and things like that. So like there is always going to be binging now. Netflix definitely changed the game in that way, but then kind of acquiescing and saying maybe not everything needs to be that way is also appreciated if that happens.
Like I saw that and I'm just like, I'm kind of happy. Like, I want to watch all of Cobra Kai, and I know that, like, I binged through 4 seasons, and I kind of went slow with it. I didn't do it in, like, a weekend. I did it over the course of about 6 weeks. But then, like, I don't want anything about this season now that I'm caught up in live, and since every episode is out there, I don't want to go on Twitter and see, like, some scene from the final episode.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it's... and that's me. Like, I know that that's not everybody, but when everything is out there, you need to understand that like spoilers are going to be around every corner.
Yeah.
All right, so I've put it off long enough. I've got 3 episodes almost entirely to talk about this whole eSports study I did with Ion Esports at Texas A&M University. It was excellent. It was just a really cool thing to be a part of. And the big thing that it did was for 8 days, I needed to log in at the same time. And I wasn't even able to do that. I feel kind of bad about it. But on the second day, there was site maintenance, so I couldn't schedule it until 6:30. And 6 o'clock seemed like the pocket for doing these tests each day. Because I get home from work around 4:30. It gives me time to clean up, maybe watch something, maybe eat something, and then sit down and take the exam. And exam is wrong. I don't even know what to call it. They're sessions, right? So what I needed to do each day at 6 o'clock was sit down at my computer, put on a pair of X-ray glasses. Mm-hmm. Not X-ray glasses, sorry. That'd be incredible.
3D glasses.
3D glasses. And I'm talking 3D glasses like red lens, yellow lens. I'm holding them in my hand because I got to keep them.
They're red and blue, Dev. You can see color, or do we need to
Wait, what color did I say?
You said yellow.
No, it's red and blue. I am
not. People can't be in the Air Force, Devon.
I am not colorblind. I can see. I'm holding the box and like I don't want to open it because getting them back in is very difficult, but I did it. Yeah, so it's a blue right eye and a red left eye. They're like for real glasses. They're hard plastic frames. They are made of plastic, like hard plastic. It's not just like the gel inserts that you would get in 3D glasses when you'd get like a 3D comic book from Wendy's about Gulliver's Travels. It exists. I didn't just make that up. And the first time that you log into the program, which is NeuroTracker X, and it's still in beta, this program, you tell it which type of 3D you're using with it, because 3D is an important part of the testing that they're doing, because you need to be able to identify and track things as they move in front of and behind each other in a lot of ways. It is tracking things in a 3D space. So you could have it as red and blue. You could have it as the polarized type things that you see in 3D at like the movie theaters. Or if you're using a 3D display. Like those are the 3 options that they currently have active. So I picked the red and blue because that's what I was told to use. I put on my red and blue glasses. And then I would have to do, the first day was 4 and the last day was 4. But the general thing was 2 sessions of 28-second rounds where I would be told 4 balls out of 8 balls that needed to be tracked, and then they would move around, and then afterwards I'd need to identify the 4 balls that I was told to track. Spheres, okay. They're spheres, I guess, so I don't keep saying balls. And as you do well, they speed up. So the fastest one that I was ever able to complete was them moving at 2.8 meters per second, which was
What did you start at? Just out of curiosity.
So it started at 0.5 meters per second was the speed.
Okay, so a pretty marked improvement then.
Yeah. By the end, like my final improvement. One of my improvements near the final rounds was 171%. Like, because that's the thing, is that doing it every day like that, NeuroTracker X, what it's used for, like athletes use it so that they can learn to track targets. So like when they're on the field, they can have better spatial awareness. It is used by the military in order to train soldiers for like, aiming guns and actually being in war environments. Like it's not some like basement program that you download. It's not Brain Games on the Nintendo DS. Like it is something.
All I think of is that scene in Men in Black where they send them through the shooting gallery and he accidentally shoots the little.
Yeah, accidentally. He has a very good explanation. He kills the only bad alien. But yeah, it is. That's a fair assessment of what it is that I was working with. And yeah, so it's 20 things, 8 seconds per round, and you got to just track them, and it gets really fast. Like, I think the fastest one I participated in was 3.2 meters per second was the movement speed. And the crazy thing about it is, like, generally I could identify 3 of the 4 targets depending on the speed. It was getting all 4 that it would be hard. But you need to understand, like, they're moving towards you, they're moving away from you, they're passing in front of each other, and it's a section of, which one am I following the right one now that they've done that? So like it was this really cool, involved and engaged study that like helped me with my tracking and stuff. I don't know if it's going to help me in gaming at all. I did mention that I unlocked Gold Mario and Mario Kart, and I couldn't do that, I don't think, before I did this whole thing.
Gotta try that 200cc now, man.
Well, that's what you did. 200cc is how you unlock Gold Mario.
Right, so, and then so maybe there is something there.
Yeah,
they basically just had you play 3-card Monty for about a week. For 2 weeks.
They had me play 8-card Monty, and 4 of the cards need to be identified each time as the queen to win.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you can totally see how this would apply to like a quarterback trying to track runners on a field, right?
Yes.
And then like keeping an eye on where people are, because plays are written with the intention of a person will be here at this time, throw this ball here, but you have to in the moment make that call of like, is that person there or are they a little to the left, right?
I really thought about it more as basketball, because you'd be you and you have those 4 other players out there. And you need to be able to identify who your guys are on a field of 9 other guys.
Right. They're the ones in the blue balls.
Yeah. Or hockey. Hockey is another thing but the real thing is that's interesting is that they're using it. What Texas A&M is using the study for is to help their eSports team. Yeah. So like being able to be on the field and identify, who my teammates are and things like that. And then also the other side of it, in addition to the whole neuro tracking part of it, was reporting my food for 10 days, reporting my activity for 10 days based on the Fitbit that they sent out to me and all of the technology that was involved with that, so that they could also
are they planning on opening up one of those like Korean esports houses where like they just eat rice and play StarCraft all day?
I mean, I don't know. What they want to do is see how activity and diet can affect the ability to perform in those scenarios.
Yeah.
Like, so you neurotracker. I mean, I'm sure, like, I'm not a scientist in this. I'm not one of the surveyors, so I don't know how the research was determined, and I haven't gotten my final report. That's going to take about 4 weeks till I can see what my findings are, and I'm very interested for that. And once I do have it, I'll report anything that I can. But it was just really interesting to put myself in there and also see what my activity is like and things like that, because I've felt really sedentary because of the whole pandemic of it all, and then seeing how much like actual movement I do in a usual day, right? So they'd say 10,000 steps, right? And I know that has been something that's kind of gone by the wayside, as there was no real reason to leave my house or anything like that. But but in an average day, I'm hitting 5,300 steps without even trying.
Yeah.
Like just the walking that I do within the house, the walking I do at work. And it was one of the things that's like, wow, it's nice to have that quantified and to see that like, yeah, no, you're not this big blob that you feel like you are because for 2 years you didn't leave your house and do it or not do anything. Like you found ways to stay active, kind of. Not perfect activity. I could definitely use like more exercise in my life, and I'm working on figuring out ways to do that. But yeah, it felt good. It felt like a really interesting way to like kind of shake out the cobwebs in my life. And it was a rewarding thing. And by all accounts, they are still looking for people to participate in the survey. So if you are interested, contact me at Devon D. Decker and I can give you the contact information. You are paid for your time. I will say that there. This is not a paid ad or anything like that. I just enjoyed my time doing it. And if you're somebody who plays games, right? And I imagine that that's at least some subsect of the people who listen to this show, like, why not find a way to make a little bit of money using that skill, using that talent?
Yeah, signing up for collegiate testing is a great thing to do for your body.
I mean, let's talk about the gig economy, right? That was the first gig economy. I remember back in college. Do you remember this? Do you have any idea of the story I'm about to tell?
There's a million stories you could tell about us from back in college. So no, I don't. I can't identify the one.
Okay, well, it's related to college testing, so I didn't know if that helped at all.
Nope.
Okay.
Still nope.
So no, that's fine. So I wanted the Sony PSP. The reason I wanted the Sony PSP was for the Castlevania collection. It's Rondo of Blood, but it was like a remake of Rondo and Blood with 3D sprites and everything. But the really appealing part of that is that in the game you could unlock Symphony of the Night, the fucking Castlevania game as far as most of the internet is concerned. And it was like $30, but I didn't have a PSP. So I'm like, man, I really wanted that PSP, but like I don't have the extra money for it. I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's when I'm going through my .edu email, and we got an email from, I think it was the biology department. Like, it was a blast to everybody saying that they needed volunteers to test out a new tick repellent spray.
Okay. I don't remember this story at all.
Oh, that's fine. I think I kept it quiet because I wanted to make sure I would get accepted and get the money to be able to buy my PSP. I'll be honest with you. I might have taken advantage of it. And what I ended up having to do was stand waist deep in a bucket of ticks.
Whoa.
After they sprayed repellent on me.
How does that solve anything? That's not stopping the ticks from coming to you.
So I stood in it for they sprayed my legs with it, right? They sprayed the bottom part of my body with the tick repellent, and I stood in the whole thing, and then I got out of it, and they checked to see if there were any ticks on my body, if the ticks had decided to latch on to my skin anywhere, or if the repellent kept them away. And it did. I had no ticks on me after standing in a literal pool of ticks for 5 minutes.
That is the weirdest fear factor bullshit I've ever heard.
It's one of those situations where I'm just like, man, yeah, I will do this. And they handed me money right there. They're like, thank you for your time, Mr. Decker. And I
don't know if this was IRB approved. I gotta be entirely honest. This doesn't sound like they went through the right systems.
It was the weirdest, where I'm just like, oh, test out a tick repellent? I'll do that. I don't care. And I thought that it would just be like little, and they're like, nope, here's the ticks. You're gonna stand in here. We're gonna fill it with ticks.
I mean, I hope that they were safe. Like, God forbid they gave somebody Lyme disease.
So
This
the
seems really...
ticks were. What I will say is that the ticks were grown in a lab. They weren't like wild ticks. They didn't like go out into the forest and collect them.
collect a million ticks to just dump on kids. Good. I'm glad.
No, they were cultivated in a lab environment, so there's no way that anything could have, like, that was what was said. Like, I
Dark
read
Industries
through
nano
everything.
ticks. Yeah.
It was just one of those situations where, like, I want to do this, and I'm like, but I need to make sure, because, like, yeah, that was a concern that came up. Is like, man, a PSP and Lyme disease, I don't know if it's worth it. But yeah, they handed me that money, and I went right out to the Westerly Walmart, and I bought a silver PSP that came with the Daxter game.
Nice.
And it also
Not
came
Jack
with
and Daxter, just Daxter.
Just Daxter, right? The game where you just play Daxter. That game I have never played, but I own it. Because the other thing that it came with was the Family Guy, like, freaking Ha collection, the version that has the Osama bin Laden scene in Road to Rhode Island.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh, I'm doing it for that. I'm like, that's the bigger deal. And it was the same price as the regular PSP. So it just was one of those situations where, yeah, I'll do it. And then I bought the Castlevania game, and I had just a grand old time with it. But the way that I got my PSP is by college level experimentation, covering the bottom half of my body with ticks to see if their new tick repellent would keep them from biting my legs.
I am so glad you kept me out of this story. Thank you.
Yo, you're very welcome.
Oh, man.
You know what? I do remember one of our friends, and I won't use their name, though I will say, right, I lavished a little bit of love and praise on you earlier this week, and the reason why is because you mentioned this person's name to me, and it was like our Malala from Booksmart or 1,000 Push-Ups for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It was like you saying this person's name was that thing that said to me, I am Sejohn. I have known you for almost 20 years, Devon. Do not act out of character because of whatever you're going through. Like, it was such this moment of like, man, I do love Sejohn, because there's not a lot of other people in the world who would know the exact 2-word phrase that would snap me out of, honestly, what my mind was going in. And we're going to talk about it in a bit of shameless self-promotion near the end of the episode, what might have triggered the way that I was feeling.
Okay.
But I do want to tell you that. But he is the one person, this individual, right? And I've revealed that he's a man, or maybe that's a misdirect. Anywho, she also wanted the PSP. So I'm like, well, I'm telling you who I'm getting mine. And I detailed the whole like study that I was going to take part in, and they're like, no, I'm just going to buy it. I'll put it on a credit card.
No, I'm just going to use, human cash. None of your tick money. Thank you.
I mean, I still have that PSP. It still functions.
And it's still full of ticks.
No, the ticks were before the PSP. It's my tick PSP, but there were no ticks involved. But yeah, so again, also, just reveal of reveals in the after episode. Devon Decker ain't no stranger to college level like medical tests to get a little extra money.
Yeah.
But it's worked out. I'm not ashamed of it.
No, I mean, we had friends that were literally selling plasma as often as they could, whatever the like month-long wait you have to do between that, but they were doing it on the reg in order to like have cash and stuff. So people do all sorts of weird shit in college for cash. Right.
And you can still do it now. And if you're not comfortable like delivering people or food, maybe look at medical tests around you. I don't know if I actually advocate that. I will say this though. I am also looking for any other remote tests that I can do for some extra money. So if you know of them, also get in touch with me at Devon D. Decker on Twitter.
This could be a fun series. I like this. We could definitely revisit this.
So that's
Speaking of fun series.
Yo, look at that transition. What's up, brother?
No, as far as the Say Report goes and ongoing like conversations, so a couple of weeks back, I shifted my focus off of Mountain Dew, right? I had gone on the journey and tried many a flavor. And kind of found myself this week stumbling into it's stumbling. I was gonna say stumbling into a cinnamon hole. Uh, I have I don't know if this is going on anywhere else. See, I used to live in Ohio, which was a testing area for a bunch of products, right? But I don't live there now, and so I have to imagine this is happening all over the country now. But Cinnamon Toast Crunch is just taking over everything. Do
Oh
you have
yeah,
Cinnamon Toast Crunch like everything?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch is it's like a shared cinematic universe of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so a few weeks back I was perusing seasonings because I was just buying some stuff to restock the Old Spice cabinet, right? And like there was cinnamon toast crunch just powder just as a seasoning. So I was like, well, obviously I'm buying this. There's all sorts of silly shit I can get into with this. I mean, on the low end, French toast and like on your ice cream and stuff, but on the high end, like imagine like a pork roast with cinnamon toast crunch seasoning on it. So I was like, yeah, we're doing this. So I bought a huge thing of it, right?
Unlike
And then
Gal
since
Gadot, you had me at Imagine. Continue.
Ouch. But there's so there's just been all sorts of other different products. So for instance, I just this week picked up, or just yesterday picked up a cinnamon toast crunch spread. It's
Like
like peanut
Nutella
butter.
spread. I've seen that too.
Yeah. And so that's the new experiment. But like I had like a cinnamon toast crunch cereal milk the other day. Like it was sold in a bottle. Like that sort of shit. So that's the new hole that I'm on. I just kind of thought I should mention it considering my saga that I went through with all of the Mountain Dew stuff. I am now on a new one where anything cinnamon toast crunch related. There was like we had done a bag of cinnamon toast crunch coffee once, like a couple of months back, because that just sounded like a fun. We always get like a special coffee, right?
Yeah.
You have that coffee from when the Pope comes over.
The Pope, he don't like a cinnamon toast crunch. You don't know buy me no Pope with a cinnamon toast crunch or sick coffee.
No, he's more of a Golden Grams guy. That's fair.
I like a dig 'em. I like it, the smacks, the sugar smacks. Dig 'em, dig them. I dig them.
I dig them. Nice. Oh man. Yeah. So it's
I
just
will
been,
do
like,
the
a
Pope
weird.
character all day, just for
I'm
the
just
record.
wondering. It basically sounds like you're just doing Russell Crowe in Love and Thunder. I'm gonna be honest.
There's a little less Greek to it.
You are uninvited from the orgy.
Hey, the
big fan of
orgy.
the
It's
freaking
fine
Disney
that I am
movie.
uninvited from the orgy. It's a sin, Zeus. It's a sin for me to speak to you.
Oh man. Fuck. What were we talking about? Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Yeah, so I'm trying to
Those
so I'm wondering how
rapscallions.
weird this one's gonna get, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's like a cinnamon crunch soda out there or something, I'm not saying I'm not gonna try it. I just am curious how far this one's gonna go.
Well, I know that I was excited when they did the Cinnamon Crunch Churro cereal. Have you tried
Yes.
that yet?
I have not. It just doesn't seem weird enough to me. I can definitely try it.
Try it.
If
It
you're
is-
telling me.
It weirdly retains its crunch
Okay.
in a way
okay.
that needs to be experienced.
Okay.
That's
See,
it.
the thing about a good churro though is like there is a snap to a churro, but then there's that nice doughy inside. I don't know. Maybe
That's what I'm telling you, man. It is they figured out a way to make a churro that is a cereal that has the
Okay.
snap every bite, but is also that satisfying chew. I don't know
Okay.
how they did it. And if you're
Yeah, I definitely
if you're
have to try
going
that
down
then.
the CTC hole, you gotta try the CTC churro cereal.
Is there a name for the cinnamon toast crunch chef?
He's Wendell. His name is Wendell. Because
Wendell.
there used
I
to
knew
be
if
two
anybody
other
would know,
ones.
it would be you. Thank you, bud.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, because there used to be 3 cinnamon toast crunch chefs, and Wendell's the only one who survived. Now I don't know.
Yeah.
Based on what we know about the cinnamon toast crunch pieces, he probably ate his brothers.
I don't know. Maybe he died in the Keebler Wars with the elves. But that's okay though because they brought him back as Frankenberry.
Oh, look at that. Oh man, that's the other thing. Fruit Brute cereal is supposed to be back in the Monster cereal
I
of
have not seen it.
2022.
I demand to see a box if that's true. I've seen huge. They've been doing huge piles of fucking like Count Chocula and Frankenberry and Blueberry. I think Blueberry's the other one they still
Those
do,
are the
right?
3 that are usually always
Right.
out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps saying, man, Fruit Brute. And I'm just like, I haven't seen it. So somebody I would get down on a box of Fruit Brute today though.
I'm always watched by a box of Fruit Brute whenever we record. Yeah, it is. I love Fruit Brute cereal. I prefer Yummy Mummy. Yummy Mummy is my favorite monster cereal. But yeah, we're getting into Halloween season very soon. I bought one of those $69 skeletons to just have sit in my car as and ride in the carpool
The
lane.
HOV lane? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, nice.
I'm gonna put a he just came in, so I'm gonna get a hooded sweatshirt and I'm probably gonna put a ball cap and some sunglasses on him. It's gonna be a good time.
Man, as far as spooky stuff goes, that's where I've been kind of focusing in my gaming verse. Are we moving to spooks?
So the last thing I do want to say, since you're moving away from Mountain Dew and it's related to spooks, before we go like hardcore
Yeah.
into it, by all accounts, Pitch Black is supposed to be the Halloween soda this year. That would
Ooh.
make me very happy to get some more Pitch Black in my body.
Man, you know what's even okay? Out here, Mountain Dew is like a staple in Mormonism because they
They
quote unquote
baptize their
don't do
children in
caffeine.
it.
Yeah, this is what they do. They don't drink coffee, so they just drink soda and energy drinks, right? But there is the other thing that has slowly started to kind of happen is developing. It's a weird. It's a weird world to live in where everybody out here is Mormon or Mormon related, and there's a lot of people not Mormon moving in, so a lot of businesses are starting to cater towards more, non-Mormon residents. So the big thing that's happening is drinking is getting more and more prevalent, right? But the Mormons are still here, and they they show up at parties and stuff, and they want something to do. So one of the things that they have really fallen in love with, the Mormon community out here has fallen in love with, is liquid death. Do you know what that is?
I just found out about what liquid death is because I've seen the bottles, I've seen the cans, and I'm like, that interests me, but I don't want to buy something called liquid death. But Zach Dyer from Board with Friends, he sent me a photo of his Transformers, and a can of it was in the back, and I'm like, look, it's too far beyond the pale for me to ask anyone else this. What the frig is liquid death? And he's like, it's just seltzer water.
So well, okay, so it's from Death Valley. It's water from some mountains out there, and there is a non-sparkly version and a sparkly version. And then of the sparkly version, there is also just regular seltzer. There is a berry flavor, and there is a lime flavor. Right, like those are the four that are pretty standard, at least out here. And it has been huge for months, and Liquid Death as a company has been going hard out here. Like there's like Liquid Death trucks that drive around, and what's happening now is as we get into the Halloween season, they've been setting up humongous displays of just fucking seltzer water just at markets, because their whole concept is that it's a can of it's a can of water designed to be able to be drinking at a party, and people won't like look twice at it. You look like you fit in with all of all the tall boys and shit. That is their whole like marketing concept, at least. And then what's crazier about it is, as I said, the Mormons are really buying into it. They love this. They could buy a case, bring it to a party. They feel like they're one of the gang because they're bringing their box of tall boys too, right? And everybody's having a good time. They're like, Liquid Death is also like leaning really heavy into being advertised by porn stars on the internet and stuff like that. Like one of their latest big campaigns, and like hardcore rock music and stuff. There's also this whole move by them as far as like save the planet, which is another thing everybody out here in Utah loves. So like the reason that they're in recyclable cans and not bottles of some kind is like their whole clean up the earth stuff. So like there's a lot of reasons to really like the company and all that, and the product is pretty decent as far as like seltzer waters go. Like it's it's not like it's gonna blow your mind, but at least it's a decent drink, right? But the big thing is you walk into all the stores out here, and there are these giant piles and displays of this shit with skeletons all over them, like playing rock music or mountain climbing or whatever, and they're just going so fucking hard. It's hilarious because it's all just for sparkly water.
I don't know. I have been with Schweppes seltzer water for 2 can redesigns. I'm a big fan of seltzer water. I
Yeah.
honestly can't believe that I've been drinking seltzer water since like 2014.
Well, in this house, we kind of had to move it to it for my health because, like, I was drinking too much soda.
I was
Just
up to
plain and
3
simple.
heart attacks a week.
I mean, like, or more to the point, I was dehydrated as fuck. I was not drinking water at all because I was always drinking soda. And fun fact, kids, soda's not hydrating you. Like, it's just not.
It's got
It's giving
sodium
you.
in it so that you'll want to drink more soda.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's really kind of the worst thing you could be putting in your body, besides just a giant like salt lick.
Which have you had?
So we moved to seltzer water to save my ass. So
Yeah. I mean, it's good. I enjoy seltzer water. I pretty much drink the Schweppes Black Cherry. That's my bread and butter. But the Liquid Death is something that I do want to try. That's insane, though, that like the way that marketing is going out there to make it look like extreme skeleton.
exactly, like it's their whole brand is that. I just can't believe we've talked about this before with Halloween and the Mormons, where like it feels like it's their one time of the year to like release all of this like pent up like aggression that they're just holding on to the rest of the year. Like they go to haunted houses starting in September, and like they do it all the way.
Are they
through,
all
like,
hell houses, or are they like real
no,
haunted houses?
like real haunted houses.
Okay.
Like there are. Believe me, you can definitely find some hell houses out here. But no, these are like Scare Factory, like branded ones that are from outside. Also, a couple of local ones where they make so much money in this 3 months of the year that that's their business. Is they're just a seasonal business of just they bought this old factory and turned it into this haunted house, make $1 million off of it, and sit fat for the other 9 months. It's a pretty wild thing, right? So in that, like, Liquid Death just kind of found its niche out here, and so it's just been fucking huge, and it's just so funny to just see this seltzer water campaign just everywhere being super badass.
I dig that. I gotta try it. Like now that it's come up twice, I need to try it. I'll
Make
get out
sure
there.
you
I'll
don't
try it.
accidentally get the just straight water one, because there is a white can, I believe, is not carbonated, and it's fine, it's good water, but you're just drinking a can of water at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And I do that. I got my 50-ounce mug that I'm drinking water out of right now. I don't need that. Who needs that in my life? I drink enough water anyway.
Yeah, and if you're gonna go to town, you might as well go into Lincoln. Like, go and get the sparkly experience, right?
Yeah, right. You freaking jerk! I love you.
Oh man,
wonderful. So I guess I got a Blossom Tales too. I should be done with that, and I'm not. I just need to share that.
What's the subtitle on that one?
That is the Minotaur King, or the Minotaur Prince. Minotaur Prince. Blossom Tales 2, the Minotaur Prince. It's really good.
How hard it is to find that game. Like, if you go looking for it, like if you type it in and get it, obviously it's just going to come right up. But I cannot tell you how much Blossom Tales, the original game, still comes up, even though I own it, like on like recommended lists and stuff for me, like on the Switch. And I'm just like, yeah, why don't you recommend the sequel, you dum-dums? Like, why is this the one that's being pushed? It's
Price
really weird.
might have been the big reason there, because it was down to like $3 for a time. Yeah. I know that they might do that. I've gotten through 2 dungeons. I've really enjoyed my time with it. The bigger problem is, and this is a call to all my computer nerd friends, you know who you are, right? Your name is just initials, right? You just got name checked on the show as far as I think you want me to name check you. But it says that my user ID cannot be found. I'm not able to log into my computer anymore. And I've tried like 4 different solutions for this, and it just does not work.
Wait. So in order to play Blossom Tale, like,
I got Blossom Tale on Steam. So
okay. Steam is telling you that it can't find you any longer?
No, Windows cannot find my user ID. When I turn on my Windows 7 machine, which is what I do all my gaming on primarily, it for the first time in a long time, it came up to the user screen, like the sign-in screen, where it used to sign me in automatically. And then I now go to sign in, and it's like unable to identify user login, resetting. And it resets. So I've booted into save mode and all sorts of different tries to get in, but none of it is working. And
interesting that in the year that Windows 11 came out, suddenly 7 is like forcing you out.
Yeah, it feels really strange. Like, and I know that the first thing I should do is probably upgrade to the next level of Windows. I mean, Windows 7 has been deprecated for 2 years at this point, right? Like, I think 2020 was when they stopped coverage for it.
Supporting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They haven't supported 7 for a while. Yeah.
I mean, and the only reason that I know that though is that me and my boss are the only people at our company who are still on Windows 7.
Yeah.
And it's because he wasn't in for a while. Like he went out on medical leave. And
Yeah.
they're like, we're not going to upgrade your computer until we upgrade his computer. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm fine on Windows 7. But now that he's back in the office, he's like, why are we still on this? And it really sucks because we're trying to use like all online Microsoft stuff. And that stuff just chugs in the Windows 7 environment.
The 365 stuff that they've been doing.
Yeah. Like it does not work as well as
it's really weird. I mean, the thing about 7 is that it's still supported outside of America, I think, technically. I might be speaking out of turn here on this one, but I know that there's a lot more different. There's rules and regulations in other parts of the world that we don't necessarily have in America. So if a company wants to come in and be like, "Sorry, that thing doesn't work anymore," we totally
allow
fine
them to do it. That's the American way.
Yeah. So like forced obsolescence is like a huge problem in businesses in America, and then the bigger problem is that when they then try and go to Europe or South America or something like that, they get like a big slap on the wrist. See, like everything that Apple's going through right now with trying to not sell a charger, right? Isn't that the big thing? They're selling the phone without a charger, and like there are some countries that are like, no, can't do that. You can't just assume everybody's got a charger at home or is going to come to you and buy a second thing. If you're going to sell a product with a battery, you need to have a way to make that battery either changeable or chargeable.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the bigger thing that I'm having with that, like, they just revealed the new iPhones 14, and I was waiting for that to upgrade. I've been using an iPhone 12 mini for the last 2 years that I really enjoy. I really like it. I like the size of it. But I'm like, I want the newer stuff, and I think I've learned. I got an iPhone X when the iPhone X came out, and I absolutely hated not having the physical button on the bottom. So now that I've been playing with the mini, I'm like, oh, I like it. I enjoy this. So I said I'm going to be all in on the iPhone 14. I'm probably going to get like a pro version of it and just to have it.
As my purple one?
Yeah, of course. Why would I not get the deep purple one? Have you seen my car?
Yeah.
Purple's my weird accent color out of everything. Red is the color you think of when you think of Devon Decker, hopefully, if I've done the marketing correctly. But it's red and purple is the accent.
Yeah, no, I saw that purple one, and even I was like, maybe it's not for an iPhone. It's not, by the way.
Yeah,
it's
not.
Getting an iPhone.
Well, and the real reason why like I'm on the fence about going all in is that it's all eSIM in North America only. Like none of the phones that are sold in America even have SIM trays to enter the SIM card in, which just seems so backwards. And like I understand that we want to go all digital, right, and move away from analog things, but like having one line of defense as an analog thing is kind of nice. Like to think that if I go to another country, I need to load in another eSIM. And then the fact that it can only have 2 eSIMs registered at any given time, like even if you're only using one of them, seems like kind of backwards too. Like it's.
I mean, also a healthy question of authoritarianism is always good, right? And like pointing to the fact that like having a company that just is basically got all your data for you, like, nah, we got this, doesn't feel great.
No, it really, right? It really does not. And what I was really nervous about is also I've been using Mint Mobile on another device to like test their service and see how it is, because I'm kind of tired of just paying the cost to have like a plan with Verizon. And then my plan is I'm out of contract right now, so I'd have to upgrade to get, like, I don't have 5G on my phone, even though my phone is 5G compatible, right? Because I don't want to pay that extra money. And it's one of those situations where I'm like, I might just switch over to Mint. And my fear was that all of these lower cost alternatives to the big 4, though I think it's just the big 3 now, right? Like Sprint and T-Mobile became one thing. We never talk about cell phones on this show. Just for the record, this feels a little crazy to talk about, but only because in high school I sold cell phones at Radio Shack. So like I have a weird knowledge of cell phones. It's just not a topic that comes up that often.
Yeah,
But
no, I mean,
but yeah,
because honestly, because things have kind of settled down. If this was 10 years ago, we'd be talking about like the fucking like mobile wars, but that's
yeah,
just not been happening for the
right.
last decade.
But that my fear was that this was going to be a way that like it has to be eSIM, and the only way to get eSIM is to be with Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's nervous. But then I did go on Mint Mobile, and I spoke with somebody. I spoke with customer service.
Did
Like,
you speak with professional handsome man Ryan
I
Reynolds?
wish it might have been him. It was all through chat, and he doesn't. They just identify themselves by a first name that may or may not be their first name.
Oh no, he has Rick Moranis handling the
Yeah,
chats. That's
right.
what's going on with him. Yeah.
And he's like, "Hi, I'm Zelensky. How can I help you today?" And you're like, well, "That's a weird name." They are going to be supporting eSIM through things like Mint Mobile. Now, I haven't checked anybody else, but that really kind of assuaged a little bit of my fears. But like only on the baseline of the fact that we're not eliminating competition with this. It's
Yeah.
not something that I love. eSIM is not something I'm a huge fan of, especially when I was like working outside the country. Every time I came back to America, my phone would be off when I was with Carnival, right? As soon as I left America, I'd shut my phone off. But then when I turn my phone on, I'd need to like call that *87 number to talk to Verizon to make sure that my phone was connected to American networks again, just because it had been out of network.
Right, right.
It's just like I didn't use it at all, and they're like, yeah, but so like every Saturday, that's how my day started, was talking to them to make sure that my essential eSIM card of it all was working, and that was with a physical SIM card in my phone.
Yeah.
So like it just, I don't know. Like you want to believe that things are getting better, but then you look at some of the choices that are being made, and it's
Well, and
scary.
how does this affect things like the laws that are in place that protect people's data from like search and seizure? Because remember, Apple also was kind of rightly, rarely, but in this case, on the right side of history, in that like trying to stop people from like, the police and FBI from just breaking into people's phones and like the FBI coming to them and saying, you know how to open this up, just open this phone up, and then being like, no, we're not going to do that. But but the data that they're looking for is on that device in that person's possession. That's what a lot of those like laws and cases were all kind of based on. What happens when that data is now being collected in a server farm somewhere owned by Apple? Like, how does that change that sort of case law?
So what
And
they
like,
covered,
I don't know the
they
answer to
covered that
but-
exact question that you're asking, which is good question, Sejohn. Glad to see that you decided to come to class today and participate. I'm sorry to be an asshole, but like that's what our professor would say if you said that. It is in the event Apple went above and beyond to say that all the data that is collected now, because they have stuff like you can send your position out via satellite. The new phones can connect to satellites for like brief transmissions if there's an accident or things like that.
Right.
And the crash detection thing, like the big badooga of this presentation from Apple was, if you're in a car accident, we'll fucking know. So like you gotta get Apple, or if you're in a car crash, you're gonna die. Apple is the only one who could save you. And
Yeah,
it's like,
I mean,
yeah, that's not the
basically built-in
Batman we
OnStar
need,
there, right?
but
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the Batman we got. I get it was weird. It was just a weird marketing push from them. But they said, because we're tracking all of these details on you, and we're keeping a record of it, we have encrypted them in a way that not even we have the ability to decrypt. Like it's an algorithm that's encrypting them, and they don't have the master unlock. Now, you and I, we're intelligent people. There's a way. There's always a way for them to unlock that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, like, but for some people, that is going to be appealing. But it is, they have addressed that exact question you're having about, what about my data? Are you still protecting it, by saying on record that it is so encrypted that not even we can unlock it.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting answer to that question, but like you said, it's one that doesn't doesn't sit perfectly, right? Like
I have
there's some rough
seen
edges
I
to
have
that
seen
answer.
too many television shows about this exact topic where the mission then becomes, oh, he has that USB key on him all the times that allows him to decrypt the data. So okay, so we got to steal that USB key, and then that
Yeah,
becomes the
and
episode.
as we know, television and technology portrayed on television is always perfect.
I mean,
All I can
like
think of,
that
all I want to do right now is send you that gif of those two idiots from NCIS, like like
typing
both
with
working
each
on the
other.
keyboard together. Yeah.
So stupid. And I watched NCIS, and like that was just like the one episode I missed for a while. Also, I'm out on NCIS now, just for the record. But it's one of those situations where, but sometimes with technology they do nail it, right? Like with air gapped computers, like that's a real thing that exists. There
Well,
are some,
and common sense,
yeah.
I mean, and common sense tells you that, like, that first of all, the second somebody speaks the words, "This is impossible," somebody out there then starts working on it, right? But also, common sense would tell you that there's a limit to that. There's always a limit to that. Saying that in perpetuity this data will be untouchable is ridiculous and not. They cannot possibly be held to that, and I wouldn't hold them to that, but it's going to matter in like some pretty important ways in the coming years. Like data security is a huge kind of like is a huge problem in this country, mostly because we are being run by a bunch of people that don't understand how the internet works, right? Like there's a huge problem there that's going to need to be addressed sometime in the next decade. And giving all of this information to Apple pre that discussion doesn't feel like the right move.
No, it does not. And also, one step further than that, God, I had something here. I hope I can bring it back by like dinking around with my words right now. Doesn't seem like it's happening, and I feel kind of terrible about that. Apologies.
No worries. It's a big scary concept, man.
It
Like
is,
like
yeah, it is.
it's really wild, and like Apple is just like
Oh well, it's how Apple
so
uses the
happy.
data for
Yeah.
themselves, right? Now that we're seeing advertising and from Apple to its users based on that data that they're collecting but not sharing with others, but they're still weaponizing it. That's not great. That doesn't feel great. That whole part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then also, I don't remember. There was one other thing about all the data that's being collected in that. I guess I'll just end on the fact that I also don't like that it's still a fucking proprietary connector to charge it, right?
Yep.
Like that whole
Yep.
thing happened in Europe where you can't use the Lightning. It should be a USB-C on this because that's universal. Everybody has it. It's not right that you're doing this. So then for the iPhone 14 to still have Lightning connectors as the only way to charge them really feels like a fuck you from them in a lot of ways.
Well, and also on top of everything, didn't we also kind of start establishing that Lightning is also just not great? Like as a as a device that sends like information and like electricity through it. Like, aren't we finding that like Lightning is also not
It's
charging
nowhere
as fast as it could
near
be?
as
Yeah.
fast or clean as what USB-C technology is at. That is a definite truth.
Yeah, it's just wild that they've really kind of tied themselves to this thing that both is not top of the line in what it does, and also they're getting in trouble for. Yeah, so it's weird. It's a really weird move from Apple, but I've never understood what they're doing.
Right, and that's not. I don't want to be like an Apple fanboy or anything like that. The reason I tried an Android, I didn't like it. I like the ease of the iPhone, and it's one of the reasons why I'm like, I think I'm going to go in and get this new model because it's been a couple of years since I've gotten a phone, and I notice my phone is not working as well as I want it to anymore. Like, and it's
Yeah.
and in this day and age, having a cell phone is huge. It's an important part of your everyday.
I
Which
mean,
is
at some
crazy.
point we
You know, like,
decided as a nation that phone lines were so important that they were going to become a public commodity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why are we not there with cell phones yet? I mean, basically, we don't use the the public commodity that is the phone service in this country because everybody's moved to cell phones. At some point, there's going to have to be that line, right?
money. It's money. Net neutrality, man. If net neutrality were still a thing, I would agree with you. But the fact that they're like, nah, we don't need net neutrality. Fuck off. That to me says that we're probably never going to get there with cell phones. And
Yeah.
that's sad, right?
Yep.
Like it is a utility And it is, I don't know. But everything's about making more money than we did last year. And that's just the fact of it.
Yeah.
I really wish I could remember.
Bummer, man.
I didn't mean to be a bummer. I was excited about the new phone, and then I'm like, I'm probably not getting that new phone, am I? Even though it's fun in purple. I'm more upset about the fact that like it sparked something in my mind, and I've completely lost it.
Don't worry, you'll get it back after we're done recording.
I know, and then I'll text that thing where I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, like how we didn't mention at all that Ted Raimi was in Reign Over Me.
Yeah, well, apparently because Mike Binder and Sam Raimi, like, I don't know, went to college together or something. Yeah. So of course Ted Raimi weasels his way into yet another movie. I love it when Ted Raimi.
I love Ted Raimi when he shows up too. We didn't mention it, but I think we are. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover before we get into the shameless self promotion portion of this episode?
No, I mean, basically just I'm starting off early with the spooky stuff for October, by starting in September.
Smart.
Just dove into Cult of the Lamb this week, and also the PS4 version of Inscription. And holy crap, I like can't see straight. I've been staring at both of those games like all day every day for the last week. We had also mentioned some stuff about Mario Maker, and definitely still like pausing to do that from time to time. I'm really excited. I'm working on a small project in Mario Maker. We'll see how far I go with it, but it's cool to like have that thing to like kind of go to when I'm between calls at work, or like when I have like a thought like before I go to bed. I'm like, oh, I should add this really quick to the game, or to my notes on the game or whatever. But yeah, I've just been playing so much. Cult of the Lamb has been everybody is talking about it right now, so like it's not a huge surprise to me that it's so good. But man, I did not know how how enraptured I was going to become in that game. The weird, like, the roguelike elements of it are pretty obvious, right? Like, you go out, you do runs, you collect resources and all that. What I was not prepared for was the like sim part of it, the cult sim part of it, but it's kind of like a farming sim but with cultists. Just like building parts of your town, finding places for them all to worship or to sleep or to work, because some of them like doing certain jobs and stuff like that. There's a whole side of that game that I just wasn't ready for, and when you first start playing, it feels kind of intimidating, because it's like, hey, by the way, in addition to running out and just killing a bunch of stuff in the woods until you die, like, you also have to spend 20 minutes or so like going back to town and checking on everybody, making sure people are sleeping and eating properly, and that there's stuff to do, and that things have not fallen to ruin. And I was just like, oh shit, like I just like, do I need to be watching the clock constantly? And you do. But like it is so well built into that game, and it is a really nice way to take a break from that Dark Soulsy, like, I'm gonna run in until and go up against this boss, and I keep dying because I know the pattern, but I keep misrolling here, or I misblock there, or like I don't know the pattern as well as I thought I did. And like that part is fun, but then being able to step back for 10 minutes and like grow carrots with my cultists has actually been a really nice like respite from that. So just props to that game, and it, like I said, it's being talked about by a bunch of people right now for good reason, because it is just a blast, and it's the perfect time of the year to play it. But then, man, I talked about Inscription I think last year when it first hit around this time on PC. It's a Daniel Mullins game. For anybody that doesn't know him, he's the guy that did like Pony Island and stuff. He does some really weird, like, experimental stuff with games, and this game is no different. And so when it was coming to PS4, I was very excited, but there are some elements to Inscription that are not, it's not like full-on Doki Doki Literature Club where like you have to go into like the program files and like move things around in order to unlock secrets, but there was definitely some elements to it where being on a PC felt like the way that game was meant to be played, which is why that's where it's been for the last year. But having a console release of it has been a blast, and I'm just super into that too. For anybody that knows that game, I am just rolling into the final act, shall we say, of that game, and I bought it Friday night, and I've just been playing it nonstop. So I've got about 15 hours in that game now that I've just been playing, like, just like I said, nonstop. So that's been pretty cool.
Inscription is one that I would be interested in. Cult of the Lamb, probably because I like friggin' I hate the population type guy when it comes to gaming. Interest in, but then also it's more than that. Like the sim of it all, the having to manage a town does not appeal to me at all.
No, it definitely is a Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a type of game, and if that's not the type of game you're into, then don't waste your
All I
time.
think
But
of is
but
ActRaiser and how they were such jerks on Nick Arcade because they would show off the action stages of ActRaiser. And then I got that game and I was so excited. And then, oh, yeah, no, you need to build up your village in order to get to those action stages.
yeah. And there's definitely elements of that, right? Like
Yeah.
the bigger your town gets, the easier the runs get, and then the better you do on runs, the more you can do in town. And so they build on each other really well. It is extremely well made in that way, but make no bones about it. Like there is an entire like half of that game that is farming simulator, which I enjoy. You know,
I
you're
mean,
talking to a guy that
I
is
had my summer of Harvest Moon, but
yeah,
I,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, we've started yet another family farm in this house on Stardew Valley. So like we love doing that kind of stuff here. So like it just it speaks to us. Also, both games are just gorgeous. I mean, Cult of the Lamb we got on Switch, and the art style and the way that that game moves is just beautiful. Like there's some stuff in the action that feels like it's a little messy if you're not quite sure, like if you haven't seen it before. But once you kind of get like what the different weapons do and what you're doing and what you know what your how your character literally moves through space and stuff, it feels a lot better and looks a lot better. But there it does get a little kind of uh overwhelming for the eyes, shall we say. But Inscription has and will always just look gorgeous because the style that he goes with, styles that he chooses to go with, because there's various parts of that game just work beautifully, and being able to play it on my PS4 Pro on my big screen TV is I am very pleased. Creepy games too, both of them both have some good creep factor in both of them.
excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying them. Inscription specifically, it would have sucked if you finally got that game and it was less than what you were expecting.
I was a little worried about like the play mechanics because there's a lot of moving around screen and stuff like that, and mouse and keyboard. There's a lot. It's definitely clear that this was meant to be mouse and keyboard. But if it's him that did the translation or whoever worked on moving it over to console, they've made some really good choices. I definitely had a couple of misclicks because my quote unquote mouse was not where I thought it was, and things like that. But for all intents and purposes, I am having a blast with it.
I'm excited for when Vampire Survivors comes out to see the same thing. Because that game
Yeah.
very built for the mouse and the keyboard. Like I tried it with a controller initially, but then getting on mouse and keyboard, I'm like, well, this is how the game was meant to be played. And as it
Yeah.
approaches its actual release, which I don't know when that's going to be, but they're officially done with updates. The next release will be a stable version 1, like completed game.
Nice.
And what he said that once that happens, that's when it's going to come out on consoles, and the world's going to be taken by storm by Vampire Survivors again. Though I don't know if they are. I mean, like, I don't. Are they going to be able to retain the $3 price tag on something like Nintendo Switch, or will the Switch tax come up? This is all the hypotheticals that are going through my mind about Vampire Survivors.
I mean, like from what I know about that game, the amount that I've seen it in action and have tried my share of it, I would probably say that I'd be willing to pay $10 for that game if it turns out that there is some type of price raise to it. I'm expecting it's going to be in the $5 range, but if it ends up having to be more because of being a full release and all of that stuff, the amount of enjoyment that I've already gotten out of that product, and I know I will get out when it comes out again, I'm willing to put a $10 price tag on that for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
if it's more than that, we'll definitely have to talk about it.
Yeah. I'm excited to start from zero again. I feel like I've just become so powerful in the PC version of the game. It'll be excited to start from zero, especially like now that there is actually a progression through the levels that sort of wasn't there before. I'm excited. That is what I am. I am excited for Vampire Survivors to go further. And I think that's it. I'm playing through Flynn, Son of Crimson, because I'm an idiot. It's
the hell
leaving.
is Flynn, Son of Crimson?
So it was something on Xbox Game Pass, and it's leaving, I think, at the end of this week. And Dale saw that it was leaving and was like, oh, I was interested, so I'm going to play it. And I'm like, you know that you need to finish it before it leaves, right? And she's like, oh, I didn't consider that. I just saw that it was leaving. I was like, well, I want to play it. And I'm like, yeah, you gave yourself a deadline to beat that game. But then I was watching her play it, and I'm like, fuck, this is a Devon Decker game. This is the type of game that I'm going to lose all of myself to if I play it. And
What is it?
So Flynn, Son of Crimson, you play a character named Flynn, and you are going out to like the woods, like just to look for stuff, and you stumble upon a Crimson Sanctuary where a young woman is trying to do a ritual, and you interrupt the ritual, and then it starts, and the Crimson Altar that she's standing before activates and imbues Flynn with the Crimson magic. And the girl's all upset because that's what she was trying to do. So she breaks. You're with the Defender of the Realm, Dex, which is your dog. She steals his power and then goes off on a rampage. So now it's sort of like Super Mario World, where that's the world map style. So you go to the levels and move through, but you're in pursuit of this magic girl to get back the essence of your dog so that your dog doesn't die, because if your dog dies then the world dies.
Okay,
It's all sorts of crazy. But here's what the gameplay is.
It's a platformer.
It's a platformer. I would kind of compare it to, I guess, Wonder Boy, just for sake of it. You have a sword and you have a projectile attack that you get once you get the Crimson power, and you go through these platform things. Most levels have multiple exits, which is really cool. Like the level that introduces that to you, there's a guy standing there at the start, and he's like, well, if you go to the left, you'll begin climbing the ice mountain. If you go to the right, then you'll find another Crimson Sanctuary. And eventually you have to go both ways, right, in order to progress in the game. But you get to kind of choose in that moment which path you want to go down. It's really good, like, platforming. It's fun attacks. Like, you start out with just like a 1-2 swing of the sword, but then eventually a skill tree unlocks, and you can do, like, I think I have like a 4-hit combo now. Nice. There's stun mechanics with the enemies. I'm playing it on hard mode because I'm like, well, I'm just a fucking idiot. Let's make it as hard as possible on me. Which means every enemy kind of does 2 damage, which isn't great because you start with like 5 points. So it's essentially a 3-heart system if you're on hard mode, and the guys are tanky. But in a game where you have the whole stun system, where you do enough damage and then they're stunned and you can just wail on them, it feels a little bit more satisfying. And at the end of the day, what I am learning, and I learned this prior to our recording because I was playing before we recorded, so much of this game can just be speedrun in terms of just avoiding enemies and using all your movement tech to not get into fights. So, like, when I saw that we were about to record, I'm like, I need to get to the end of this level, and I just avoided every fight until I got to the exit, which felt kind of nice. Like I said, it's a Devon Decker game, like up, down, left, right, totally a Devon Decker game. And I'm happy to be playing it. I wish I had learned about it sooner so that it's not something that's going away. Like the story is whatever. It's one of those things where, like, just ignore the story and have fun with the game. Yeah, it's pretty great. The visuals are beautiful. There's multiple weapons and multiple magics to use, and I feel like I've played so much of the game. Like I said, I'm 25% through the game, and honestly, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what is actually going to be on display.
Wild.
So
that's
it's
cool. That's
it's
awesome,
pretty cool. Also this week, if you don't have a Nintendo Switch, River City Girls Zero is coming to all the other platforms. Don't pay more than $20 for that game, is what I'm going to say. I don't know how much it's going to be on the other systems, if it's something that you're interested in. It is not a new game. It is the 1994 game that introduced Kyoko and Masako as characters. They are not the main characters. The whole rebranding it as River City Girls Zeros is the craziest thing in the world to me. I mean, I'm probably going to get it on PlayStation because it looks like a pretty easy platinum, but I don't know how to feel about it in so many ways.
Yeah.
Especially since it getting delayed on larger console releases, I personally feel is partially what delayed the release of River City Girls 2, because we've got a little bit more information about River City Girls 2 coming out of PAX West. The fact that the big bad from River City Girls 0 is the big bad in River City Girls 2. In addition to his adopted son. Yeah. But I mean, the reason that I'm talking about it and all that is Limited Run Games just this past Friday put all their River City Girls 2 stuff up for pre-order. And generally, I don't feel bad doing. I mean, I got to get out of the limited run game cycle. I've spent too much money, and what I have said, I've gone on record. I think I said it on the show, but I will say it again: is this is the last year that I'm doing limited run game stuff. I just can't do it anymore. It is too much money asked up front for a product that then doesn't come for like a year or longer. When I think about the fact that River City Girls, the pre-order that I did for the first River City Girls, like other people are getting their collector sets and I still don't have mine. And that was ordered like in February.
This is weird because it always feels like it's a big old poke in the eye to specifically Devon Decker, because the same thing happened with you and me and
with Scott Pilgrim.
And Scott Pilgrim, yeah.
Yeah, you got the Scott Pilgrim game like 2 months before it came to me. So I don't know what's happening. It's just, and I kind of like it, but at the same time, this is the one where I'm really like, I don't know. I mean, if you do get River City Girls 0, you're gonna see Limited Run Games is part of the production and companies for that game. They actually get a title up front, so that feels weird. And like, it's one thing, I did not feel bad ordering River City Girls, like the collector's set that I did, because the game came out in 2019 and the collector's edition was released for pre-order in 2021, right? So I had played the game, I knew about the game. Yeah, I don't feel bad putting down some money to get some collectibles, right? Like, I understand that I care about the game. Having to do it in advance for River City Girls 2, like not having had to play the game and being like, yeah, it's $100 for the collector's edition, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't even know if I like the game. And also, the game's gonna come out and be available long before I get it from you in a physical form.
Yeah, like, if you don't pay that extra money, Dev, you're not going to get all the Catwoman levels that really tie the story together.
Oh my god. I hate Arkham City. I want to play Origins, though, because I've learned some crazy stuff about that game. Is there a demon in it?
No.
Oh,
what?
Okay. Arkham Origins,
it's a really weird
demon in it.
It's a really weird origin story for the Batman Joker relationship that then plays out in the Arkham
games
proper trilogy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I Origins is a weird animal, not made by Rocksteady. It takes place in a I will say this: the map in Arkham Origins of Arkham City is closer to Arkham City than it is in Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight kind of throws it out the window in a couple of places, which is wild considering that it's supposed to be like the same town. And I don't know. So Arkham Origins has some ups and some downs to it. Mostly for me, my biggest issue with Arkham Origins is that it never felt nearly as tight as the Arkham games, like for the fights, and that's like the whole reason.
And that's the whole reason you play those games.
Yeah. But their excuse was that, well, this is supposed to be an origin story. He's not as good as he was. And there's some places where you're like, no. This just feels like it's just not as good. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm learning. It feels more like, oh, this is when I hit this button, the reaction times are not as good as they are in the Arkham games. Like, yeah, I don't know.
But for me, like, limited run games, this seems to be the bridge too far for me. Because a lot of the times the game will be out, so I'll know I'd like a physical copy of it in case anything ever happens to the Nintendo storefront, the PlayStation storefront, and it's no longer available, but I still have this system to play it on. Like Ninja Turtles, The Shredder's Revenge, it didn't go up for pre-order until the game had been out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that felt like, oh, I have the opportunity to buy it and try it and see if I want to spend additional money on this game to get like some collector or physical version. Having it released prior to the game coming out really just feels strange to me. And maybe they've done it before, but this is the first one that is a game that I am interested in. And you know what? I say maybe they've done it before. One of the other ones that was released, I think earlier this year or late last year, was the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, which came out in like 2017 and is now finally getting a physical version through limited run games. Like, it feels like it's supposed to be an afterthought, not a pre-thought.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I have
it's
always thought of limited run as being kind of like the Criterion collection of video games, right?
yeah.
Like not necessarily Caliber. That's a different conversation. Although everything going on right now with the announcement of Wall-E for Criterion is kind of also it blows that conversation up too. I mean, I personally am very excited about that, by the way, but that's a discussion for another day after I buy my copy of it and I can gush all over it. But in that sense, right, of limited run games being this thing where they like it's supposed to be preserving some type of history, really kind of like making sure that like you're saying that there is a physical way to play these games long after the internet dies on us, right? Is kind of the concept behind their whole oeuvre. So it kind of seems to go against that when they're giving you these pre-order options for sure. But you know, man, like you said before, it's all about money. Like this is the kind of stuff that they can do to move forward to be a profitable business
Yeah.
that will allow them to look back on a 5-year-old game and give it a physical release like
Yeah,
Castlevania.
or a 20-year-old game, 30-year-old game with something like
Yeah,
the
really.
Bill and Ted games.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's I don't know. It's just it's sad because it seems like they're giving up their philosophy for money, but that's what selling out is. And honestly, the goal is always to sell out. And I don't want to be like rude or sad about it, but you know, the whole fact of like forever physical and then some of these versions still having to download things, like it not being the final version of the game that you're getting on the
Yeah,
cart,
yeah.
like that's really weird to me. Like
Well, and you know, not to say anything about just even when it's not downloading anything or an internet required game, like they're still going to make internet required parts to it, like licensing. Like you'll still have to reach out so that you can ping a server somewhere that says, yeah, you actually this is a proper license to play this. I mean, like that's
that's
already a thing that exists in other games, like, and that'll be the true death knell for this whole concept of like gaming historian side of all of this shit is that once it requires that you get online to ping a server for licensing, it's dead in the water because what happens when those servers go down?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
And
I
now
don't
you've
think
got
I
a
can
physical
play.
thing that
I don't think
doesn't
I can play
do that.
Bionic Commando Rearmed 2, right? I'm pretty sure that server's down,
Hmm.
and I just never got a chance to play it before going to
Yeah.
work on Carnival. It's a weird thing. All right, shameless self promotion time.
Yay.
Sejohn,
Yes.
it has come to my attention that the same year that Reign Over Me came out, also came out The Pursuit of Happiness. And the conspiracy theory in my mind is Jada Pinkett Smith is in Reign Over Me to ensure its failure and open up the pathway for Will Smith to win the Best Dramatic Actor award at the Nickelodeon Teen Choice Awards
Oh,
that
for the
year.
Teen Choice Awards. Yeah.
Will Smith
Obviously.
needs to get slimed over Adam Sandler's Charlie Feynman. But yeah, no. So we also welcome to the Stay Report. You've been here for an hour and 51 minutes, and it's also episode 295. So like, there's some content here. If this is your first episode, welcome. Thanks for listening this long. It's you true listeners who really make the Stay Report happen, and we thank you. But what else we do when we're, because we want more on our plates, we also do the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe. And we just released, right in time for Adam Sandler's 56th birthday, right? Does that mathematically work out? 66, yes. Right? Yeah. So he's going to be, 4 more years. He'll be 60 years old. Wow. Good for you, Adam Sandler. I love everything that you do. In time for Adam Sandler's 56th birthday, we released our latest episode. And right now what we're doing over at the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe is we're strictly focusing on the fans and the movies that fans have been asking us to look at and see if they exist in a shared cinematic universe of Adam Sandler.
Fans of our show. You got to make that clear. Not just Adam Sandler fans, because that's
our
kind of
fans.
been the focus of the whole show.
Yeah. No, people who listen to our show and people that we talk to about the show who then say things like, oh, have you guys covered Big Daddy yet? I'd like to listen to that episode. And we're going to be like, well, funny story. No, we haven't. No. So Big Daddy, people like Big Daddy, apparently. I was surprised. I don't know. But I was more surprised.
You're really confusing people right now because we then did cover Big Daddy.
No, we covered Big Daddy. No, we didn't at the time, right?
Right.
Now,
no, I understand.
in season 4,
have.
a season for our fans, the first thing we did was Big Daddy because it came up so often. Another one that I was surprised came up so often, not anymore though, was Reign Over Me, which, most people would just quickly categorize as Adam Sandler's 9/11 movie. Like that's always the follow up there.
Right, right.
So when so many people were coming to us being like, yeah, you guys have to do Reign Over Me, I was surprised by that. But having just covered it for the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe, I get it. I get where people were coming from. So basically what this is just like a reminder that we have that other podcast out there, and to let you know that we just covered Reign Over Me. That's the latest episode. And it feels oddly prescient now that anyone who was born on September 11th, 2001 can legally drink.
Oof, man, wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are recording on September 11th. For we didn't really mark that at the beginning, and I don't know if there's a right way to, but this is how we're celebrating, by living our lives.
Yeah.
Man, wild times.
Living our lives. And that's, especially if you watch something like Reign Over Me, that's sort of a big theme, is to live your life and not get mired down in the past or try to hide in the past when something scary or uncomfortable happens to you. So that's what we're doing, and that's why we're playing games and watching movies and just having a grand old time as the Say Report.
Yeah.
So that's it.
So is this all just promotion for Adam Sandler? Is that what you're...
I mean, yeah, and it's also a way to acknowledge, never forget. It was an insane time in our lives, and it is... I can't believe it was 21 years ago. Like, the 20th anniversary is something, but 21 years and seeing, like, those signs in the bars that, like, anyone born after this date can drink actually display September 11th, 2001. Like, it's otherworldly. I don't know if you've had them on your timelines or anything like that, but it's weird to see it, like, just up on the wall.
Yeah, no, I mean, and, there's... we live in... God bless America country out here, so there's definitely been all sorts of memorials and things like that, and people still grieving and growing and all of that stuff as they need to. It's been a weird one also, because I just I was at a point when I was teaching teaching at a college where I had college age students that were born afterwards. Like, they just had no memory of it, did not exist when it happened, and honestly kind of talked about it like we talk about, like, the Desert Storm or the Vietnam War, or, like, this thing that happened in the past that I'm not really sure how it affects me. And you and I, we talk about it pretty often on this show and on Adam Sandler to kind of point out, like, ways in which things changed and how things were done in the 90s versus how they suddenly started to be done in the last 2 decades. And so we do talk about it as an event that is definitely important. It's just we don't usually focus on the event itself as much as we did for the ASCU this month.
Yeah, and it's sort of colored a lot of me like where I've been this week. Like, initially, like, the first time I watched Reign Over Me, thinking about, like, those things that were kind of nostalgic, or the things in my life that are nostalgic that I was sort of deriving pleasure from, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, like things that, like, I decided to focus on things I knew made me happy when I was younger, and then watching that movie and seeing that that's just a type of deflection from, like, dealing with your actual feelings with what's going on around you. Like, it completely changed the entire direction of my weekend. Like, I was going to mire myself in nostalgia in some really heavy ways, starting with the 8th of September. And Sejohn really kind of helped snap me out of it by using that magic 2-word phrase. And again, I do want to thank you for that. But then watching that movie and thinking that, like, going backwards is not the way to live a full, satisfied life. And so much of this show is about that philosophy of entertainment, and how in modern times that philosophy of entertainment has become so colored by nostalgia. So it is a really interesting time to consider that, like, no, maybe we need some new things too. Maybe we need to just focus on the other stuff that's out there and available.
Yeah, I know one of the big things going on right now is everybody's talking about how the 90s are coming back in terms of, like, fashion, right, and colors and stuff. Like, everybody out there is looking for that brightly colored fun that we had in the early 90s, right? But then everybody kind of instantly remembers how crazy we all looked, like between the various hairstyles, the like fucking like off the shoulder overalls and everything, like just all sorts of stuff that we did at the time because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And we be, you know, looking back on the past is fun, like, but leave it in the past. It's it for with a lot of that sort of stuff, right? Um,
Yeah,
it's that
don't
same
live
idea,
in the
right?
past. Look at the past, learn from the past, but don't live in the past.
Yeah.
Is I think the big that's the big thing I got from something like Reign Over Me, and it's I've been applying it a lot to my life, and you know, no bigger thing than that than like Jurassic World Dominion and watching that and just being like, yeah, no, I think I'm done with Jurassic Park.
I'm big with them big old thunder lizards. Thank you.
Yeah. So that I mean that's the thing. Talking about that and everything else, and I would also feel weird to not mention the passing of Queen Elizabeth II.
Yep.
I think that's all I want to say here. I don't want to get overly political or anything else about it because I know I feel my way. I'm sure Sejohn feels his way, and everybody else feels some ways too. But it is
I will go one step further and say this is a pretty big deal that we don't know the full implications of yet. Like we have never, you and I, in our
we've
lifetime,
never
never
lived in it.
known
Yeah.
what a different leader in that regard was. Whether or not they're even really still hugely influential, but some things are going to get a little weird on that side of the world for a little bit, and so we're just going to keep an eye on it. But that's the last thing that I would say about it.
I guess the thing I say, and this should hopefully be as apolitical as possible about it. I didn't think that I could fully understand the reach and reign of the royal family in the UK until there were all those examples of every single electronic bit of signage displaying her photo. I don't know if you've seen any of these videos or anything like that, but like her face and in memory of her is everywhere in the UK right now.
Yeah,
and it's just like
and yeah, I mean, we've got some employees and some friends over there as far as like work and family go, and I mean, they're basically not going to go to work for the next like week and a half. Like, is essentially is like part of the deal with everything that's happening, and the ways in which they're going to kind of deal with this is huge because again in our lifetime like we've never
seen it. We've literally never seen it before, and that was the thing is like because you think of, you know, the Queen of England and all of that comes with it, but then like to see her photo on the Sydney Opera House, and there's that one that like really struck me is alongside the escalators in the underground, every bit of signage being, you know, her photo is just like we didn't understand the scope of what the royal family meant, especially as people who don't live there, but then like we don't know what it's going to mean now that there has been a transition of power.
Yep.
Other than the fact that their national anthem is now God Save the King, proving you can switch pronouns in the UK if you want to. That was not apolitical at all. All right. So, if you're playing Cult of the Lamb or getting all your spooky season stuff ready, Sejohn would love to hear how you're doing it, maybe compare notes, and he can be found on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
I like Spooky Sejohn though. That might be the new persona for the season.
I can't wait until you switch your name to Spooky Sejohn on Twitter.
Oh,
it'll be your Simpsons name.
But yeah, and if you want to hit up Devon with some apparently blurry photos of things you want him to drink in the background, go ahead and hit him up on Twitter at Devon D. Decker.
Rude. Just rude. But yeah, Liquid Death review coming next week. Will bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.